Once upon a time, in a land of promise and faith, there was a place called Bethlehem, whose very name meant house of bread, an oasis of sustenance, a cradle of life. But even the most sacred places can be struck by calamity. A relentless famine struck Israel, transforming the house of bread into a desert of despair. In that bleak scenario, a man named Elimelech, his wife Naomi, and their two sons, Mahlon and Chilion, faced an impossible choice: to stay and languish in the land God had promised them, or to flee into the unknown, to a pagan land, hoping to survive. The decision, driven by the most primal of human needs, hunger, would lead them to Moab, a foreign, idolatrous, and, in the eyes of many, hostile nation. The journey to Moab was a flight from death, a desperate search for any crumb of bread that could sustain their lives. They found refuge, a respite from the pursuit of famine. However, the foreign land, though it offered them sustenance, exacted a devastating price. The first blow came abruptly and cruelly. Elimelech, the patriarch, the protector, succumbed to life in a place that was not his own. Naomi found herself widowed, alone with her two sons, in a land of strange customs and gods. The hope that had brought them there began to fade, replaced by a dark premonition of what was yet to come. The years dragged on, 10 of them filled with a mixture of grief and the attempt to rebuild. Mahlon and Chilion, now men, found solace and companionship in two Moabite women, Orpah and Ruth. Love blossomed, and Naomi's family, though diminished and exiled, seemed to find a new, albeit fragile foundation. But fate, or perhaps an implacable providence, had not finished its work of desolation. In a cruel twist, tragedy struck again. First one son, then another were cut down, leaving Naomi not only a widow but also without descendants, without heirs, a woman triply grieving, her heart heavy with pain and bitterness in a land that was not her own. The news that the famine in Bethlehem had finally ceased reached Naomi's ears like a distant whisper of hope, or perhaps of a last chance. There was nothing left for her in Moab, only graves and painful memories. Determined to return to her homeland, she made the difficult decision to encourage her daughters-in-law to stay. Orpah and Ruth, both Moabites, still had the chance to start over in their own land, among their own people. With tears and sorrow, Orpah, after much hesitation, made the rational choice. She kissed her mother-in-law and left, returning to her family and her gods. But Ruth, the young Moabite woman, remained. Her decision defied all logic, all convenience. To abandon her people, her culture, her gods, and the chance of a future in her own land, to follow a bitter mother-in-law back to an unknown and potentially in a hostile environment where she would be seen as a foreigner. Her declaration, echoing through the centuries, resonates as an enigma and an oath. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. What spurred such sacrifice, such unwavering devotion? What mysterious force led this woman down such a radical and uncertain path toward a destiny that promised more uncertainty than hope? The answer would be revealed not in Moab, but in the dusty streets of Bethlehem. The arrival in Bethlehem was not a triumphant return, but a silent funeral. The whole city abuzz at the sight of them, the women whispering, "Is this Naomi?" But the woman returning was not the same one who had left. Her face, once full, was now a map of loss, furrowed by hunger and pain. With a voice that cut through the air, she declared her own sentence: "Do not call me Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went out full, but the Lord has brought me back empty." For Naomi, God was no longer a provider, but an adversary who had emptied her of everything: husband, children, future. She felt like an empty shell, a living testament to divine forgetfulness, and in her bitterness she could not see the seed of hope that walked silently beside her. While Naomi drowned in her grief, paralyzed by the conviction that her fate was sealed, Ruth acted. With a faith that defied the logic of tragedy, she saw not an end, but a beginning. It was the beginning of the barley harvest, a time of abundance for Israel, but of uncertainty for them. It was then that Ruth, the foreigner, took the initiative that would change everything. She approached Naomi and said, "Let me go to the fields and glean among the leftover ears of grain after him, in whose eyes I find favor." She wasn't begging. She was claiming a sacred right. The law of Moses, the so-called gleaning, was a divine social safety net, a commandment for landowners not to harvest the edges of their fields, allowing the poor, the orphans, the widows, and the foreigners to gather what remained. It was a law of dignity in need, and Ruth was about to test its effectiveness, guided by a force she herself did not understand, a hidden providence we usually call chance. Ruth walked toward the rolling fields of Bethlehem. She knew no one, had no map, only the determination not to let herself and Naomi starve. And so, it happened that she entered precisely the plot of land belonging to a man named Boaz. The script of destiny could not have been more precise. Boaz was no ordinary farmer. He was described as a brave and powerful man, a pillar of the community, a man of great wealth and influence. And most crucially of all, a detail that Ruth did not, she could have known. But the universe seemed to conspire in her favor. He was a close relative of Elimelech, Naomi's deceased husband. Ruth, the Moabite, unknowingly had entered the only place in all of Bethlehem where her destiny could be rewritten. The encounter was as sudden as it was significant. Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted his reapers with a blessing, revealing his righteous character. His eyes, however, were immediately drawn to the unknown figure, moving with tireless diligence among the sheaves. "Whose young woman is this?" he asked his foreman. The answer came laden with information. "She is the young Moabite woman who returned from Moab with Naomi. She asked to glean and has been working tirelessly since morning until now." Boaz did not see an intruder or a threat. He saw something more. Approaching her, his words were not of rebuke, but of extraordinary and unexpected protection. "Stay in my field," he said. "Do not go anywhere else. I have ordered my men not to disturb you. When you are thirsty, drink from the water they have drawn." To a vulnerable foreigner, these words were a shield, a fortress in the midst of potentially hostile territory. Boaz's kindness was so overwhelming that Ruth bowed down with her face to the ground, asking what we all would ask ourselves. "Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you should take notice of me, a foreigner?" Boaz's response reveals that his act was not random. He was not merely being kind. He was responding to a character that was already legendary. "I have been told all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband," he said. "How you left your father and mother and your homeland to come and live with a people you did not know." He did not see a Moabite. He saw a loyalty that transcended blood and nationality, and then he pronounced a blessing that would echo through eternity. "May the Lord reward you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." But what did it truly mean to seek refuge under God's wings? And what did Boaz, that powerful man, really see in that woman bent over in his field? Was it merely compassion, or was it the recognition of a key piece in a much larger divine puzzle? Naomi, marked by loss and despair, glimpsed a faint light. Boaz's kindness toward Ruth was not merely charity, it was an echo of the goal, or redeemer, a sacred role that ensured the perpetuation of the name and inheritance of a deceased person. Naomi, shrewdly, realized that Boaz, a relative of Elimelech, could be that redeemer. But Ruth was a Moabite, a widow, and tradition demanded a bold, almost unthinkable move to seal such a destiny, defying social conventions and expectations. With courage bordering on recklessness, Naomi devised the plan. Her instructions to Ruth were precise and fraught with risk. Wash yourself, put on perfume, and dress in your best clothes. Take off your clothes and go down to the threshing floor, she said. The threshing floor, a place of daytime work at night, became a place of rest and danger. Ruth was to observe where Boaz lay down, and then, when he was asleep, approach stealthily, uncover his feet, and lie down there. An act of vulnerability and audacity that could easily lead to disgrace and scandal. The darkness of the night on the threshing floor enveloped Ruth in anxiety and determination. Following Naomi's every instruction, she waited patiently until Boaz, satiated and tired, lay down beside the pile of grain. Ruth's heart pounded as she approached in the dim light, the smell of barley and sweat in the air. With trembling hands, she uncovered Boaz's feet and, with minimal noise, lay down. The hours dragged on. In the middle of the night, a start. Boaz awoke, turned, and in the darkness perceived a figure. "Who are you?" the voice asked. Filled with surprise and alarm, Ruth's trembling voice echoed. "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your cloak over me, for you are a redeemer." The revelation, coming from a woman lying at his feet in the dead of night, could have been disastrous. But Boaz, a man of integrity, understood the gesture. Far from outrageous, he blessed her, recognizing her loyalty and intention to perpetuate the lineage. He praised her, stating that the whole city knew her as a virtuous woman. Boaz promised to fulfill the role of redeemer and protected her, ensuring she would not be seen at dawn, thus avoiding slander. He sent her back with barley, a sign of his promise. If you are enjoying unraveling these mysteries and plot twists, leave a like and a comment about what surprises you most in this story. However, amidst the security of the promise, Boaz introduced a twist that cast a shadow of uncertainty. "There is, in fact, a redeemer closer than I am," he revealed. A single sentence destabilized everything. Who was this mysterious figure, more closely connected to Elimelech's family? Could this other, did the man have the legal right and, crucially, the desire to assume the responsibility of Redeemer by marrying Ruth and restoring the lineage? The hope that had barely blossomed on the threshing floor could be crushed by a legal formality. Ruth's daring knight had secured Boaz's protection, but the real obstacle was yet to come, and the destiny of redemption hung in a delicate balance. Boaz wasted no time. At sunrise, he made his way to the city gate, the place where all the civic and legal life of Bethlehem unfolded. There, under the watchful gaze of the elders and witnesses, Boaz waited. It wasn't long before the nearest redeemer, the mysterious figure who held primacy over the right of redemption, appeared. The tension was palpable. Boaz, with his wisdom and shrewdness, summoned 10 elders of the city to serve as witnesses, ensuring that the process was transparent and unquestionable. It was a decisive moment, not only for Ruth and Naomi, but for all of Bethlehem. The lineage that would unfold from that legal crossroads, the destiny of a family and of a future king, was about to be sealed at the gates of Bethlehem. Before the elders and the Redeemer, Boaz clearly explained the situation. Naomi, who had returned from Moab, was selling the portion of land that belonged to her deceased husband, Elimelech. According to Mosaic law, the closest relative had the right and the duty to redeem this property, keeping it within the family. Boaz offered the right of redemption first to the man, explaining the opportunity to acquire the land. The Redeemer initially showed interest, seeing the chance to expand his possessions. But Boaz, like a master strategist, held the crucial condition, the piece that would redefine the game and reveal the true extent of the responsibility attached to that redemption. It was then that Boaz revealed the inseparable clause. On the day you buy the field from Naomi, you must also buy it from Ruth the Moabite, the wife of the deceased, so that you may perpetuate the name of the deceased on his inheritance. The expression, perpetrate the name, meant marrying Ruth and having children who would be considered Elimelech's heirs, perpetuating his lineage and his name through the property. This revelation changed everything. The nearest Redeemer realized that by doing so, he would not only be acquiring land, but also assuming a social debt and potentially diluting his own inheritance by having a child who would legally belong to another man. Ambition gave way to prudence. With a sigh of relief for the unseen audience following the story, the Redeemer declared, "I cannot redeem it, lest I jeopardize my own inheritance. Redeem what is due to me, for I cannot redeem it." And according to the custom of the time, to validate a redemption or exchange transaction, he took off his sandal and gave it to Boaz in the presence of the elders. This symbolic gesture sealed the agreement and opened the way for Boaz. With God's blessing and the community's approval, Boaz proclaimed before all that he was redeeming everything that belonged to Elimelech, Chilion, and Mahlon, and, crucially, was taking Ruth, the Moabite, as his wife. It was the fulfillment not only of the law, but of a divine promise that transcended human understanding. The marriage between Ruth and Boaz was a celebration of unwavering faith and providence that wove improbable destinies. In a short time, Ruth conceived and gave birth to a son, whom they named Obed. The women of Bethlehem rejoiced, blessing Naomi and recognizing Obed as the restorer of her soul and the sustainer of her old age. But Obed's story did not end there. He would become the father of Jesse, who in turn would be the father of King David. And so Ruth, the Moabite foreigner, the woman of a cursed people, became a vital link in the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the promised Messiah. Her journey, from a helpless widow in a gleaning field to a matriarch in the lineage of kings, is an eternal testament to the fact that God's grace knows no boundaries, ethnicities, or prejudices. It not only found purpose, but redefined what it means to be part of God's family, breaking prophecies and changing the timeline forever. If you were touched by this story of faith, courage, and divine providence, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, and share this video. Which other biblical character would you like to see explored? Leave your comments below. Until next time, where we will continue to explore the narratives that shaped our history.